Okay, and we are live. Welcome, everybody, to episode 11 of Long Toss here on the Walkoff, presented by Oh My Apparel. So we got a sponsor now, Scott. Look at that.
Look at us go.
And we were very clear. We said, tell us what you want to talk about. And he gave us a homework assignment. It was basically, well, go through our Instagram and see what's new and then talk about it. So thanks, Duncan, at Oh My Apparel for that homework assignment for the promotion. We'll get better with that as we go. But for now, Oh My Apparel has created our logo. Right, Scott?
Yeah, and it looks good.
So
we didn't even know what we wanted, but look at how sharp it looks.
Was he ever an angel to tolerate us and our request for the logo? Duncan has been on Long Toss before, so you might recognize him as the guy in the red hoodie who cheers for the Phillies. But yeah, he has a phenomenal little apparel company out of Calgary. So, Oh My Apparel, shout out to them, and thanks for the support of Long Toss. Beyond that, we should shout out our Patreon. So thank you to the half dozen Patreons that we have. Every dollar helps keep the lights on. So thank you so much to Shane, Joel, Joshua, Jeremy, and Ian for supporting us on Patreon. This month's Patreon exclusive is going to be a movie review of the movie Moneyball. And as a special extra treat, Joel, hey Commie, is going to join us for that one. So he's been begging us, if we ever review Moneyball, his all-time favorite movie, that we have to let him do it.
You're beaming,
It
Joe.
shouldn't mean that much to somebody, but it just really does. Like it's incredibly big news for me. That's kind of sad.
You're just hearing this news
so
right
excited.
now for the first time.
Yeah, we're breaking it to him live. Yeah.
Oh wow, I feel like that player in spring training, and the coach brings them into the office, and you find out that you made the roster, and you're like, oh my god.
You're Cato. Wait till we send you down. No.
There's no service time manipulation here, Joel. You're going to get a full year of service this year. So.
Thanks so much, guys.
Well, Joel, let's start with you. How you doing, buddy?
Doing
weekend.
Great. Yeah. Oh my god. And we were shooting the movie as well. So that was going on yesterday. Opening day. Like watching it on TV. Oh my god. I assume some people tuned off eventually at 7-0. I really never tune off because I watch individual at bats. I care about individual performances within the construct of the entire thing, right? So I'm never going to tune off of the game. But man, to see a comeback that none of us were alive to see, the one that was bigger than this was 1950, correct? So 72 years since an opening day comeback like that. And they did it by the 5th. Like,
very cool. Well, we'll get to all that. We'll get to all that.
So I'm doing well.
That's good. You're doing well. Nice to hear it. Familiar face with baseball Jen Smith. How you doing? Nice to see you back.
Thanks for having me. I was at the home opener and down 7-0. I thought, well, with third inning, no hits, maybe I'll see a no-hitter and maybe that'll salvage the night. I don't know. And of course,
the Jays spoiled that for you. Sorry about that. All right. As always, well, not as always, we had some technical difficulties last week and we missed out on Mark, but Mark is back. So we got the password and everything sorted out.
We're good.
Mark, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks.
We missed you, Mark.
All right.
I don't know what happened last week, but we're here today, so
we're glad you're here.
Show off that fancy new jersey of yours, bud. Let everyone
here we
see
go.
what you're wearing here.
Who's on the back?
bought this for me on Saturday.
Oh, Springer. Nice.
Very nice. Got that from Sarah on Saturday. She walked downstairs to have a pee and then came back with a jersey.
There you go. That's the best bathroom break there is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hey.
Couple new faces here we'll get to. So we have Chris Henderson, co-editor and contributor to Jay's Journal. So, Chris, welcome to Long Toss on the Walkoff here. How you doing?
My pleasure. I'm doing all right. It would probably could be a little bit better if Sunday's game finished.
We were all doing better until about 2 hours ago. So, all right.
But other than that, got nothing major to complain about.
All right, very good. And then we've got Craig Borden, so host of Jaybird Watching Podcast. So, how you doing, Craig?
Doing pretty good. Was very, very happy until about 2 hours ago, but to that point it was only one loss and it's only a whole 3 games in. So there's only so much bad you really can take with that. But to that point, I'm sure we're going to get plenty into it.
Oh, absolutely. And then last but not least, we've got Scott Belford. How you doing, Scott? Nice to see you.
Good, buddy. Absolutely. I'm ready to take this ship over when you bail on us real quick.
So, full
which
disclosure.
is what you're getting to shortly.
Yes, full disclosure. I do have to leave here. Family thing is happening. Long story short, there's pizza involved. I couldn't say no. So Scott's
the opposite of a family emergency, yes.
Yes.
Yes. It'd be a crisis if I wasn't there. But all right. So let's before we get to opening day, because I know we all going to talk about opening day and how that went, how this opening series went. We're going to preview the 4-game series coming up against the Yankees. We're going to talk our pitching woes, check our panic levels on that. I know the fan base is all riled up about the pitchers. We got a lot to talk about. The Biggio-Espinal battle for second base. Just so much to get to. But let's start with panic check on Nate Pearson. So the news on Nate Pearson is that he is out with mononucleosis. So they said he's going to be out a while. That's the only description for timetable that I've seen. When I was a kid, mono was a pretty devastating illness, but we also didn't have the elite doctors that hopefully the Blue Jays staff have to give to him. So probably going to be out 3 to 4 weeks with mono, plus a recovery time. Joel, let's start with you. What is your panic level on Nate Pearson with mono? How long do you think he's going to be out for? When do we see him make his MLB debut this year? It's total speculation time. Give it to me.
Well, I heard that it was pretty much like it's going to reset him on terms of like no spring training. It's like he's going to be reset to 0. He's going to have, mono. I see it as when you get mono, you probably lose a little bit of muscle mass. You're going to have to build up physically, and it's going to attack your immune system and all of those things. To me, it's just look at like Soto had a bout with COVID to start last year, right? And Soto was fine, right? Like I think we're looking at something similar to that. It's gonna hit him hard, but he's in the prime of his life. He's incredibly athletic. He'll bounce back physically from that. And I'm glad that it's that over a physical ailment, right? Like he's out for a month because
arm tightness.
He hurt his ankle or he hurt his shoulder. He's got some sort of pain or something in the forearm. Like that's got me scared. About with mono is, it's just unlucky, really.
Yeah. Can ivermectin cure mono? That's my question.
We're gonna get the YouTube channel pulled down for even talking about it, Scott. Well, Scott, let's go to you then. Let's go to you. How are you feeling about this? Do you echo Joel's sentiments? Are you at all worried about this?
I mean, it's a bummer, and there is no timetable. And like Joel said, I read the same thing, that he is starting to feel better, but he is starting from 0. Like, he needs to completely ramp up. And I mean, even looking at how pitching has been across the league to start this season, you can tell that like shortening spring training just extends like some of those pitching woes into the season. So you don't even really want to rush Nate when he's ready to come back, right? You want him ramped up fully, which is what, a month? So until he even starts pitching, he's over a month away, and that does suck.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Jen, how are you feeling?
I mean, the most, the biggest symptom that lingers with mono is fatigue, right? That's the most difficult aspect to get over. So, how long does he feel fatigue for, and how does that delay his ability to actually get out there and start pitching, right? They can't possibly predict that. And that's why it's just, he's out for a while. So, I agree with Joel. It's far better news than knowing that he has some sort of physical injury, since that's, plagued him his entire career. So I'm not panicked at all. Would be lovely to have his, him throwing heat out of the pen, especially right now while the starters are still trying to figure things out. But it is what it is. I don't really know. Hopefully, the layoff time and any loss of muscle mass and so forth, hopefully ramping up will be a slow progression, and that in and of itself not lead to injury.
That's a great point.
Great point. Craig, that's a nice little dog you've got back there.
Yeah, I got one of my 3 bulldogs running around the house, hanging out in my office here with me. So, perfect. But to that point, the fatigue's the big thing. So you're talking about if he's even getting back to normal every day, you're talking already a month away from now, right? So by the time he gets ramped back and up, are we looking at June before you get a key piece like Nate Pearson back in this bullpen? And after today, guys, I think, it kind of looks like we need some more arms in that bullpen, especially with how we've had 2 out of our 3 starts so far this season. A little rough from our starting pitching. So it's only going to put more weight on that bullpen situation, just like we saw last year. And we're going to have to, keep overcoming that same thing over and over again here. And if we can't find somebody to chew up some innings like we were expecting Nate Pearson to be able to do in this bullpen, who is going to make up the issue is, I think the bigger prevalent problem here, not the fact that Nate Pearson is basically a month away.
So you don't want to see Trent Thornton run out there every single game.
I'd rather get tortured by watching Jason Frazier all over again, just saying. I love Jason Frazier, but it was that same thing. It was the wild card every night he came out of that bullpen.
A real Rafael Dolis, if you will, sure.
No, I had a feeling there was going to be a fire there, just saying.
All right, Chris, how about yourself? Nate Pearson, any thoughts? The bullpen in general?
I mean, at this point, it's just sort of par for the course, right? Like if there was one twig on the street, he's going to trip over it. And that's just, if he's, he's got one, okay, well, what's going to happen to him next? And so I remember when the Blue Jays signed Kikuchi, I was a little disappointed because I was hoping Pearson would get a shot at that 5th starter's role. But it's just a great example of why you can't really, at this point in his career, I hate to say it, you can't really count on him or can't expect that he's going to be on the roster. And so I'm hoping that 2020 he proves that wrong. I'm not by any means writing him off, but as far as speculating on when he's going to come back, I mean, how many twigs are down the street from his house? I have no idea, right?
It is,
and I think the other
about.
Right. Well, and I think the other key
sprinkle
point
heads
too
in our
is
situation.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other key point too is we'll see what kind of role they need him to pitch in by the time that he's actually able to come back. Because if he's coming back in a relief role, then the fatigue thing doesn't play as big of a factor as it would as if he's going to be a starter. And right now he's probably not coming back to a starting role, but a lot could change in a month, right? We don't know who's going to be healthy and performing well and all those sort of things.
I think I read that he was going to be built up as a starter, but clearly, right, there's no place for him in the rotation right now. So
right.
Long man out of the pen. I don't know, but like you said, this is sort of par for the course.
Well, with Nate being the power pitcher that he is, he is not Ryu, right? He is not going to go out there and use smoke and mirrors to get strikeouts. So the thought of him getting mono and potentially losing 15 to 20 pounds of muscle mass and then thinking that as soon as he's over it, he'll just go back to 100 miles an hour. For me, that's the biggest concern is we'll get him pitching again, but if he's topping out at 96, 97 for the rest of the summer, that's a big concern for me. And I don't know if because as much as we love Nate Pearson, we haven't really seen it at that major league level yet, right? So there is the
glimpses.
We've seen the glimpses is all we've had, right? So for a guy who hasn't really solidified his jump to the major league level, I think this is just terrible timing for another setback and another twig on the road. Like you said, he'll find a way to trip over it, and it's, I don't know. I'm worried. I'm worried about Nate for this year, anyways. But let's turn up.
Point though, if he comes back without the muscle mass, is he going to be able to throw? Is he going to have to learn how to pitch at 96 instead? Which might be good for his development. Just saying. If you have to learn how to actually pitch, it's that gas, people.
The whole concept of learning to pitch at 96, just saying. I remember when guys were throwing 89 and all right.
Talks about early, right?
I was going to say that we may have to combine Julian Merriweather and Nate Pearson into just one person and just put your expectations on that combination of if one's healthy, at least one's going at any given time, then we can look at it in a positive way.
All right.
Joel, that sounds like it came out of the comic books behind you in one of the multiverse series, the Blue Jays one or something.
Yeah, some sort of fusion of one person. You're like, oh, at least one of them's going, That's just one person. Julian Pearson or Nate Merriweather.
Let's pivot now to the home opener, because that was a heck of a game to watch, but we do have pitching fears to discuss based around that as well. So with the home opener, obviously Jose Barrios was chased after 1/3 of an inning and about 70 pitches, it felt like. So, I mean, the good news is we won, right? And we got it done through our bullpen. But let's talk specifically about Jose Barrios before we get into the hype train of how awesome that comeback was. I'm not worried about him long term. I think next start's going to be good. I think a lot of hiccups for a lot of starters with the condensed spring training, so I'm really not too worried, but I want to know where everybody else is feeling. And then Scott, maybe I'll let you take over here for the rest of the way, and I gotta dip out, and I can smell the pizza already. So,
all right, well, how about we start with Chris? What are you thinking, man?
With Barrios, yeah, I'm not the least bit concerned about him. I mean, I think we have to give a little bit of a grain of salt to every starter for the first time or two through the rotation. Second time in 3 years. Well, their spring training hasn't been normal in 3 years, right? So, I mean, and that was part of why I wasn't that worried about Ryu coming into this season. He looked great over 3 frames today and then fell apart. But Barrios is just a good young pitcher that's got a lot of things going for him. He didn't have it at all on Friday, and he even said he just kind of got a little too amped up, and hopefully next time he'll just settle in and be the pitcher we know he is.
That's a really good point, and even let's broaden the spectrum from just that home opener and Jose Barrios, because we saw Kevin Gausman not look as sharp as he has in the past, obviously, in Game 2. We watched, and I'm with you there, Chris, in that Hyun-Jin Ryu, I thought he actually looked really good this start. Even in the 4th inning, like, in my opinion, when Ryu takes an L, it's because ground balls find holes, I'm almost all right with that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That was today's summary, too.
Yeah, right?
At least how that whole inning started and went out of hand.
Exactly. That's a great point. Where are you at, Jen, you were actually there at opening day, Jose Barrios. Any concerns?
No, I mean, I think his body of work speaks for itself. And this was one outing after a shortened spring training campaign. And, he said himself after the game that he was missing his locations. He was maybe overthrowing, throwing rather than pitching. So he's already identified what the problem is. And, assuming that he can make a correction the next time out, I expect to see a better performance from him. And I think it will all just sort itself out as these guys, pitch a couple times, as you said, through the rotation and actually, find their rhythm. I'm not worried at all.
Do any of you have any concerns with the pitching that you saw? And let's go full staff here, started a bullpen because there were some holes in both areas. Joel, where are you at? Did you see something that maybe you didn't like, or can we just chalk up these first 3 games to a shortened spring training, guys still getting their stuff together?
I'll be a little bit pessimistic in this. I think Barrios is the type of pitcher that at the end of the year, when you see his ERA is 360, whatever it is, let's say it's 360 at the end. You're going to see games like this that are over kind of like he gets hit hard, right? Like if his stuff isn't there, he's going to get hit hard. But then he'll go on stretches where I think he'll throw 7 innings and consistently do 2 earned runs against. And you'll see, over 7 games, it's like there'll be that spike of ERA, and then he'll work it down. Then it'll spike again. Like I've heard that from on TikTok. I've heard that a lot from Twins fans, is that Barrios over the course of the season is a real roller coaster. He's not going to come out and just nail that same start that is his league, his ERA at the end of he's going to get hit 360 every single game. And at the end, you're like, oh, that was a real consistent. It's going to be a little bit of an up and down with Barrios. And
but when
so
he's
I'm
hot,
not,
right?
What's that?
Like, look at what he did when he's hot too, right?
And
So
it was the same thing in that little microcosm that we saw last year, was that he had some real blow up games, but then he'd come back the next game, and it's a feel thing. Like it comes down to pitchers having 32 starts and them having their stuff for 12 of them. And then, another 10 of them, they feel good. And then the other 9, they're struggling. And how can they struggle? Are they good at struggling? What kind of pitcher are they when they are struggling? Right. So it's how you put all those starts together. And I'm not worried about Barrios so much. I think it'll be like that. Pretty much.
Craig, anything to add on the pitching side of stuff here?
I'm gonna go on the Barrios thing, or you were just going there, Joel, with the whole up and downs thing. I'm like cheating. I've been able to watch Jose Barrios here in Rochester, New York, as the Twins affiliate in minor league baseball here for forever. I've actually been looking all over again for a Rochester Red Wings Jose Barrios jersey, because I want to be that guy to wear it to the Rogers Center when I come up. So, but to that point, it was the same thing here when he was in the minor league system. It was a roller coaster. He looked like going to be the next Cy Young Award winner, and then he looked like that dumpster fire that we saw on opening day. And then there would be a lot in the middle there, but to that point, he's gotten more and more consistent every season. I think this is the fact that right now, with where Major League Baseball is in general, we even saw this with Garrett Cole getting lit up by the damn Red Sox the other day too. Although I just want both of them to get beaten up. The hitters, I think, are more in tune already to the season's pace than where the pitchers are. So whether it's a bullpen arm, a starting pitcher, whoever it might be, the hitters are already hitting, and they're already ready to go. Where some of these pitchers, especially guys like Barrios, that need to get in that groove a little bit, are a few weeks away, maybe even a month. This spring training thing really screwed everybody up. And even the fact that they couldn't get to anywhere they would do their normal workouts in the off season for the lockout being what it was. The Blue Jays couldn't take advantage of that wonderful new complex that they have down in Dunedin, Florida, because they weren't even allowed to be anywhere near the team because of the lockout. So all these things are factoring into why you saw Gausman get, 5 innings. Ryu only really have 3 strong innings, and then 1 out from Jose Barrios. It's even showing up in the bullpen too, because I think we've already seen an up and a down of her Julian Merriweather, for example. It's going to take some time here for all the pitching really to iron out. And that's why I'm just so glad that they're weighted so heavy on pitchers right now on this roster, that hopefully we can band-aid these things together and still be able to scavenge out enough wins. I think it was Jen that you were mentioning before this whole thing started, that we basically somehow just actually managed to avoid a Texas Rangers sweep because of this whole thing. Yeah. There was 2 comebacks mixed in. So that's the point that I think that we're going to be focusing on here is hitting's doing well, pitching's going to be lagged. And then when this team clicks, it's going to be something really special.
Yeah, it's riding the offense until the pitching kind of catches up. And I think we all believe that this pitching is going to catch up. Mark, what do we have going on in the YouTube right now? Are people freaking out about pitching? Are we being too positive here?
Well, we have Real Justice says the Yankees have the best 1 through 7 hitters in MLB and are going to destroy the Jays.
Okay, well.
So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of panic going on in Jay's neighborhood, but I'll let you guys
Josh Donaldson's in 2015 form, huh?
That's cute.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's put a positive spin on this before we move on from pitching and the home opener and the first series of the year and all that. How excited are we about a Garcia, Meza, Romano back end of that bullpen? How are you guys feeling? Chris, how about you?
I think they got lots of nice weapons in the back of the pen. Those 3 that you just mentioned are all solid arms and, probably underrated arms. The bullpen is always a volatile area in baseball, and we see names emerge every year. So to see some continuity, some guys that have done it before, even if it's just for a short period of time, is nice. And I'm a huge fan of David Phelps coming back. He looked so great last year before his lat injury. He had a nice inning today. And I think he's a guy that, on a minor league deal can make a big difference. And so I realized that bullpens had quite a few hiccups already, but, we've talked about lots of reasons for that already. And I'm actually pretty optimistic on how things are going to go.
Bringing up David Phelps is a really good point, and I really love the experience he kind of gives that bullpen back there too. And it's an under the radar kind of experience too. You know, like he's been around a while. He's won. He's, you know, the fact he came back on a minor league deal is pretty cool. Joel, what are you thinking about Julian Merryweather? Do you think he can stay healthy? Is he on the right track here?
Well, it's nice to see him healthy to start the season, and no question marks there. You know, you're with him, you're gambling at any point. So to at least start the season good is, you know, that's good news. And we all know that his stuff is right up there when he's going and he's mixing in 98, 99 with an 80-mile-an-hour changeup. That's unhittable stuff. The thing that I'm worried about with the bullpen is our bullpen can be great if they're utilized correctly. If they're put in situations like this where your starters are, you know, having issues all season, getting innings, it's your bullpen is going to be taxed, and then you have issues, right? I think all our arms are great, but I think if you know, to be a little bit worried about the rotation. And I'm going to transition to this because I watched Seattle's the opening game, and Robbie Ray did not have his stuff. This guy did not have his stuff. He went 7 innings. He scattered 3 hits, and I was like, we gave up an ace. We gave up an ace. We gave up an ace, and we signed Gausman.
Yes. Joel, I love where you're going with it. We're going to put a pin in this for 1 second here, buddy, because we are going to really delve into this, my man. But before we move on, I do want to touch on something that you did kind of bring attention to, and that is depends how this bullpen is managed. And obviously, we're 3 games in, and sample size, that's what baseball's all about, is a big sample size. So this is not something to, you know, take a microscope and look in on. But how did we feel about the first 3 games and how that bullpen was managed? Jen, how did you like how Montoyo handled the pen in the first series of the year here?
I really didn't have any issues with it. I think, you know, you don't expect your opening day starter to get 1 out and that's it, you know? So you're already behind the 8 ball at that point and just trying to roll with it. And, you know, they came back and I thought he plugged in all the right pieces to try to keep to hold the lead. Right. That's what I thought. You know, and hopefully I'm more confident in this bullpen as it currently stands than I was in the bullpen at the beginning of last season. Right.
100%.
So already that's a good starting point. It's far too early to really be drawing any conclusions one way or the other. You know, and Montoyo has already said it, like they've got to get more innings from their starters. And that's, you know, if you overtax the bullpen, it almost then doesn't, you know, how can you use it properly? Right. So we'll have to see how it goes in New York. The Jays are 0-1 in games that Jordan Romano has not pitched in, mind you. It's just
Craig, bullpen management. Bullpen management, too tough to judge after this 3 games and the hand he was dealt, right?
Yeah, I agree with the fact that it's looked pretty good so far. But the one thing that kind of stirred me today's game, Ryu was starting to slide downhill and he gets hit by the hit and gets knocked out of the game. The game was starting to get out of the Blue Jays' hands at that point, and you knew this. I was very surprised to see that you brought in a young guy like Julian Merryweather to run with that. And rather, I would have honestly loved to see the flip of that, seen David Phelps come in, bring the veteran guy in that might have been able to lock it down. But to that point, is there anything really to scoff at? No. It's too early to really tell on that whole thing. But it was just one of those things that seemed odd to me, that it was a clear experience level thing to get out of this inning. And you threw one of the youngsters right into the fire.
Well, Julian Merryweather would be thrilled to hear you call him a youngster at 31.
Yeah,
The
Major League experience youngster.
No, the experience point is dead on there. Absolutely.
He's younger than me, so I can still say that.
All right, Mark, what are we looking at on YouTube? Anyone adding anything in here, or any comments from Discord that we should bring up?
General consensus is there's a lot of concern about the back end of the bullpen. to be honest.
Interesting.
Just little comments here and there about fixing that for the most part, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, Jen, how do you feel about the high leverage guys in this pen?
I have confidence in them, to be completely honest. I mean, and again, you know, are we basing things on what we saw last year, or are we basing things only on these 3 games? Right? I don't really know. I just think it's too soon to hit the panic button, to be completely honest. I really do think, as we've already said several times today, that lack of spring training was, you know, quite the setback to the pitchers, right? They do need time to catch up to where they should be at this point in the season. And once they get to that point, if we're then seeing, you know, wonky outings from them, then I think we can start to question who's in the bullpen and maybe what needs to be done. But until they get to that point, I think it's just too early to hit the panic button.
Couldn't agree more. We're going to move on here, but does anyone have anything to add before? Yeah. Go ahead, Joel.
I was going to say that the good thing about that being an issue, your bullpen, it's not a good thing that it's an issue, but the fact that it's probably the easiest hole to be able to plug over the course of the season, it's going to cost you the least to trade for a decent reliever to fill in a certain spot. Like we're not talking about it. We're talking about bullpen arms they're just kind of a cheap commodity. And as teams fall out of the race, more and more arms become available over the course of the season. And we saw that last year. We were able to bolster that bullpen over the end of the year. And we, with our go mentality, grabbing a few arms over the course of the year that's not going to really cost us too much. So, and it's an easy thing to do.
Well, part of that too is we haven't really seen where everybody's roles really fall into this new structure now that you have Jimmy Garcia and everybody too. We barely seen Zimmer and some of the other guys that were our key players last year too. We saw Richards today. Everybody's going to find their spot and where they are really, you know, leveraged appropriately, I think, going forward too. It's 3 games.
I was just going to say that, Craig. That's a great point, and I think it's something the fan base needs to just take a big breath and be like, okay, like 3 games in and we're 2-1. Technically, we're on pace for 108 wins. This is not something to panic about. Let's shift gears here a little bit, and I know, Joel, you were chomping at the bit to get into this, so we'll do this. So the last long toss last week, we got into a conversation and the majority of our panelists were of the mind that Kevin Gausman taking over for Robbie Ray, kind of taking his spot in this rotation, is going to be fine. And it's probably going to be a wash. And for the most part, everyone felt like Gausman might even be a step up. Who knows? Now, this got under our man Joel's here craw a little bit, because I've been dealing with about if I showed you his text messages with me for the last week, he has very much
his pants might be a little too tight.
Exactly. He's very much taken the stance that Robbie Ray maybe wasn't the guy to let go, and that the front office perhaps should have been in on him a little bit more than they were, especially to lose him over what turned out to be about $5 million when you compare the Gausman contract with the Robbie Ray contract. So let's start with you, Joel. Get into the numbers on Robbie Ray, why you love him, and then we'll see how this all comes out in the wash. Go ahead, bud.
He's got the highest career K per 9 of any pitcher ever as a starting pitcher. He strikes out a half guy more than Randy Johnson did in his career. Okay. And I know that's ridiculous to say, oh, that's one stat. He found the strike zone last year and pitched a 2.80 ERA in the AL East. This with 11 weeks of the opening season, 60% of the league is cheating around this guy. 60% of the league is cheating around this guy, using foreign substance. Garrett Cole's setting records. Guys are just cheating all over the place. And Robbie Ray's like, I'll just use rosin. I'm fine. I don't need to cheat. And he threw the Cy Young while literally the entire league cheated. And then the moment the foreign substance was banned, he obliterated everybody. He just cruised. He just dominated. He Like, let's talk about what he did against Tampa Bay last year. 38 and 2/3 innings, 2.35 ERA, 51 strikeouts in 6 starts against Tampa Bay. 50% of his starts were against AL East opponents. Like, the AL East, our divisional rivals hit 878 home runs last year. That's by far the most. Over there in the NL West, where Gausman pitched, they hit 758 home runs. That's 13% less. Okay. Gausman, over the last 77 innings of last year, San Francisco didn't want to use him. They didn't want to use him in the postseason. His ERA was 4.50. He was getting belted. It's a fastball that has a 260, 270 batting average on it. We saw 8 hits against it. I'm scared. I'm scared that they made a personal decision because they like Kevin Gausman for 7 years instead of going after the guy who on a 1-year deal bet on himself while the league was cheating through the best season we've seen as a starting pitcher since Roy Halladay, and they let this guy go. They should have backed up the truck for this guy. I am heartbroken that we lost our ace and that we may have in Barrios, Gausman, and Ryu, we might have 3 number 3s making number 1 money, and we let the number 1 guy go. That's what I'm really worried about. I'm sorry to be that guy, but I am totally that guy.
Okay, Chris, can you talk Joel off the ledge here? Is that possible?
I'm really not even sure where to start with that rant. Respectfully. I'm a huge fan of Robbie Ray too. But I think you can sit and look at, I mean, he was a different pitcher last year, and I do think there's some sustainable changes he made, but I don't think that it's, if even after the first start of I still would bet on Gausman myself personally over the life of this 5-year contract, especially the way that AL East is set up. The thing that I really like about Gausman, especially as they get older, you can talk about this season, but talk about the life of a 5-year contract. I love the way that Gausman's stuff plays into ground balls, and it plays into where Ray's more of a fly ball pitcher. And in the American League East, that's important because Yankee Stadium is a hitter's haven. The Fenway Park is an easy place to hit home runs. Baltimore, they finally moved things back, and I realized the whole division thing will change next year as well. But when pitchers get into their 30s, I always worry about the power pitchers like a Robbie Ray, and only time will tell whether they made the right decision or not. But and the other piece of the whole puzzle that I was going to start talking about and then totally got sidetracked was we don't really know how all the negotiations went either at the time. A few people that I talked to that had some connection to the whole thing said that of course they were talking to Robbie Ray, and it's always like, well, do you take this deal or are you going to, I'm talking to these guys, and the timing of everything is always so key. So, if 10 minutes had played out on either side, Robbie Ray could still be a Blue Jay and Gausman could be a Mariner. We'll never know. But I'm just thrilled that they got somebody who is capable of pitching in a number 1 or 2 role. I don't think that they're number 3 guys myself, but I think we got some really strong minimum number 2 guys.
That's a really good point about not knowing how the negotiations went down, because I do truly believe that they were in on Robbie Ray. I think that, he showed them enough over the last year and a half. I think it's even why they were in on him. And I mean, if we rewind to last off season in 2020, like Robbie Ray signed, what was it, November 7th or something like that? Like he was the first free agent off the board. So the Jays wanted in on him. I think that to speculate why they lost him, because there's a lot of fans. I know you go on Twitter, which is, of course, the most positive place on the planet, but there's a lot of fans who that $5 million, it really gets in their craw, right? They feel like the Jays moved on from him, but you don't really know how that went. Jen, when you look at this Kevin Gausman signing, do you feel that in the end, this is going to be a wash if you look at Robbie Ray's 5-year obviously, this is all speculation, but Robbie Ray's 5-year contract and Gausman's 5-year contract, at the end of it, do you think the numbers are going to look comparable?
I think so. And as you were all talking, Chris ended up bringing up the point that I had in my mind, which was that we really don't know how the negotiations went. And I think, those conversations are ongoing. And I think a front office gets a sense of either what it will take or that there's nothing that will make it happen, and have to then start looking in other directions, right? So without knowing how those talks were going, it's really difficult to say that they just decided to move on from Ray, or that they just didn't wanted to go in a different direction, right? So I'm hesitant to kind of say that. Both of them, I mean, Ray had a phenomenal season last year, and he obviously made some changes. Are those changes sustainable? I have absolutely no idea. He had one outstanding year. Do you want to bet on that 1 year? I don't really know. I don't think that losing him and getting Gausman, on the surface, you can make the argument that Ray did it here in the AL East, and therefore you need to keep him. I think that it needs to play itself out. I don't think you can evaluate it in any way, shape, or form until we're a couple seasons into the contract. But I expect at the end of the 5 years to not regret having let Ray go. But we'll see.
Well, and the one part I wanted to add on, sorry to jump back in, was that they were up against the clock this time, right? With the last CBA expiring, that there were a bunch of teams that were trying to get as many contracts done as they could before that deadline came up. And Gausman's agent, Ray's agent, they all wanted to get deals done. So this was a case of, unfortunately, they couldn't massage their offer. They were coming up to a clock, and there were multiple players in the pool.
That's a good point.
So I love our front office. I love the moves we made. This is the only place where I disagree. I'm backing up the truck. I'm giving him a tiger. I'm giving Robbie Ray whatever he wants to stay in Toronto, because I watched Barrios. It's not just Gausman. Okay. It's the fact that they signed Barrios in advance. They signed Gausman, and Ray was third. Okay. Ray should have been first. Ray should have been the first person they walk up to and go, "You're the guy."
They might have, though, right?
But
we have no idea what happened in that whole situation. And honestly, I wonder where I was going to go with my point is, I wonder how much this is the actual point that Atkins keeps saying, that we missed out on an opportunity for the fact that we, just things didn't want to gel together. Through the last few interviews in the last few weeks, he was saying that we missed somebody that they really wanted from free agency, and we had the money to do it. Did Robbie Ray legit not want to play in Toronto, was my question from that conversation. And maybe he saw, whatever reason he wanted to go that direction, because it sounded like they had that guy that they wanted ready in hand in the midst of the challenges of having people that can go, be vaccinated and go up above the border, that and all that kind of crap. It sounds like there was a sticking point that somebody we knew in the midst of the way he was talking in those interviews. And I wonder if that was Robbie Ray. He had the offer on the table and he goes, "No, I like what's going on in Seattle. I'm going to go over here." And it might be that simple. I agree with you.
Rain.
I would love to see him on this team, but I think the actual off-season plan was Gausman and Ray.
Which to me is completely shocking. I would have spent $20 million, $30 million more on Ray. I'm serious. He outpitched Garrett Cole, who's making $37 million a year. Gausman, to me, it all comes from foreign substance. Trevor Bauer hits the Cy Young jackpot with foreign substance, proves that you can do it. Okay. A bunch of pitchers on their free agent deals, ready to become free agents, say, "I'm going to start using foreign substance." Kevin Gausman puts up a 1.40 ERA for the first 11, 12 starts of the season. The foreign substance line crosses, and he's a number 4 starter for 77 innings. They wouldn't even start him in the back half of the season. Where we are leaning on Robbie Ray. The only reason we had a chance at a fun September last year was Robbie Ray between July, August, and September going out and throwing 7 innings, 5 hits, 10 strikeouts every single night. And the only thing that happened there was that he found the strike zone. The way that Sandy Koufax found the strike zone, the way Randy Johnson found the strike zone. The walk rate got cut in half because somebody said, stop throwing at the corners, throw it right down the middle. They can't hit it. You've got the highest K rate in baseball history. In baseball history, when do you see the best of something ever on a team? Ricky Henderson was the last time. We had Robbie Ray, the highest strikeout rate, over 1,000 innings, and we let it go. And I just can't. That's the one issue that I have.
Listen, you point out the numbers like you do, and obviously, I just want to reiterate that this talk isn't about picking one or the other. Both are obviously great pitchers when you start breaking down stuff between Gausman and Ray. I know, Joel, that you have some concerns about Gausman and the numbers and how the timeline with the sticky stuff lines up. So let's just talk baseball in general for a second here, and we'll go around the horn and see what everybody thinks. But for the most part, okay, and this isn't a hard, fast rule, but for the most part, if you take a 30-year-old player and just look at the back of his baseball card, his career numbers are probably going to be what he is. Now, I know both Robbie Ray and Kevin Gausman really kind of caught on a little bit later in that 29, 30-year-old range. Robbie Ray had a career year last year. Do we think he can improve on it, or do we think we look back and go, you know what, 2021, that is Robbie Ray's best year, and we probably should have seen that coming? What do you think, Craig? Your mic's
muted, buddy.
Anyway, as I was saying, so I think it's going to end up looking a lot like he's going to have, I don't think it's going to be a blip on the radar for him, but I do think that is going to be his best career year. I don't think it's going to be the fact that like where the Blue Jays picked up on the fact of where, oh, whoa, great, we got Robbie Ray from Arizona. Does everybody remember that conversation? It's only a few years ago. Robbie Ray was on a clear career decline, it looked like, and then all of a sudden he got the right people in his corner, and he all of a sudden turned into a Cy Young Award winner. Does that continue to happen? Does that stay? I don't have a good enough crystal ball for that. But at the end of the day, I really do think that he's going to have a solid career, but we did to see his best season, I think.
Did anyone have anything else to add on this before we move on?
I think he's going to T-Mobile Park. There's a lot less home runs in the AL West, and I think his home runs are going to decrease, which is his weakness. I think he's going to throw over 200 innings this year. I think he's going to win the Cy Young again. I think he's going to win 3 Cy Youngs in the next 5 years. And I think we're going to be just absolutely heartbroken about this. And I'm also providing some goddamn content. I'm not, I don't want to be anti-Jays.
This year,
I don't want to be anti-Jays, but this is the one thing that I just never understood. I just didn't understand.
I'm going to be this jerk that says what hurts is him the next few years. He's not going to be only playing in the AL West after this season.
That's true.
He's going to be playing everywhere. So
that's true.
The ballpark thing, the ballpark effects, all our wonderful American League East perks are gone after this season because we're going to be playing in every ballpark all day, every day for a whole season.
Which is awesome. I love it. I'm
glad we're doing
That's the greatest news ever for the Jays. That's the greatest news ever. We're going to have 400
it should happen a long
teams
time
in
ago. The weighted schedule is stupid.
Agreed.
It really is. It really, really is.
Okay, let's move into the infield with this Toronto Blue Jays club for 2022. We did just see Bradley Zimmer acquired from the Guardians. Going the other way, Anthony Castro. Of course, that allows us to have a outfielder on the bench who could play center field. We did just watch Tapia play it this afternoon. Let's get into Bradley Zimmer and just where you guys see. I mean, we won't spend too much time on our 5th outfielder, but we will touch on the fact that he was brought in. Chris, how did you like that move, and where do you think Zimmer fits into this team?
I don't know. I mean,
Chris is throwing darts already, just wherever.
Yeah, no, you know what? Here's the thing is like, I don't mind the move. I mean, we made a small trade. It's a fringe 40-man roster kind of move, and Zimmer had some upside at some points in his career. But I mean, if you watched him at all this spring, which unfortunately I did, I'm in this fantasy baseball league on steroids that is 30 teams, and Zimmer was like one of our last bench spot guys. So I did kind of pay attention, and he was terrible. he couldn't hit the ball. He struck out like 10 times out of 16 at bats. He finds it, and he can play things occasionally against righties. Cool, but he seems to me like the kind of guy that could be off the roster next month. I don't know that he's going to be that significant.
I mean, he was acquired for a waiver claim.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he's somebody that they're just taking that rolling the dice on, and he's going to get enough opportunity to even prove himself. Like there's just this lineup's too deep to be starting Bradley Zimmer. It wouldn't make any sense.
One thing that was kind of interesting about this first 3-game series of the year was watching how Montoyo used Espinal and Biggio even within games, platooning them halfway through. Jen, how did you feel about their use? And can you see this going on in this type of way for any prolonged time?
I mean, I thought it was interesting. It was almost like using an opener in the position or something like that, right? And I thought it was really interesting. But I've been consistent in my assertion that Biggio, while valuable, is not an everyday player on this team. If this team is really going to take it to the next level, then he is not your everyday guy at second base. And, for his part, Espinal has done what he needs to do this offseason to try to secure his spot. I mean, he's put on 15 pounds of muscle. That's incredible, right? And so, now he's got the defense, he's got the contact, but now he's got the pop in his bat. And we saw that. I mean, I think the phrase that I heard the most, over the first 2 games was exit velocity.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone was talking about his exit velocity. I think he hit 3 balls with an exit velocity over 106 miles per hour. He's never hit a ball that hard before in his life. And here he is with 3 of them. So, it'll be interesting. We talked the last time I was on about the need for a lefty bat to give pitchers that different look, make them, locate a little bit differently. Is Biggio really if he's your only lefty bat, does it really matter? Probably not. So I think unless Biggio really gives Montoyo something to ponder, I think we're going to end up seeing a shift where Espinal is going to get the majority of the playing time.
It's been interesting to see, even with the 2 platooning as they have, how solid the infield defense has been. It has been the most exciting thing I've watched all season. Like, even when they lost today, 12-6 loss, and they took a tough one on the chin, there wasn't really a point where a lot of those games last year where they'd lose after being up and you're just pulling your hair out because you're like, oh my goodness. Like, if they just were not a sieve in the infield, we'd be fine. But for the most part, they looked really good. Craig, how are you feeling? First of all, we've got 2 Craigs now. Craig Ballard, welcome back, buddy. It sounded like you weren't going to make it, but glad to have you.
No, I appreciate it. Well, I don't know if it's a welcome back, Scott. Was that shots fired right out the gate, Scott? As soon as I came on screen, Scott made a comment about pulling the hair out. So wait a minute here. But great to be on with you guys. Scott, I'll follow your lead. If I can yell at Kami for his Robbie Ray take, I will. If I can yell at all of you for your unbalanced schedule take, I will. Or if we should just move on and I'll chime in, I'll follow your lead.
Okay. Well, let's start with you on how you feel about this infield defense so far in the first 3 games of the season.
The absolute stunner was in that first inning of that first game. Now, overcame it, right? But I said, I was doing a Blue Jay Live on TikTok. I said to everybody that would listen, that error by Chapman in the first inning, you'll never see him make another error the rest of the season. That was a stunner. And then Saucedo, friend of the show, checks in with the bases loaded. First pitch gets the inning-ending double play to stop the bleeding. Biggio screws it up at second. So it didn't get off to a good start at all. Long run, my gosh. I mean, I keep saying Matt Chapman is not just the best defensive third baseman in the league. Matt Chapman is the best defensive player on planet Earth, period. So we're going to see huge things from him. He's going to be so helpful for Bo. I thought Bo made a couple really nice plays today. And I just think Chapman, when you think about Chapman, he plays so deep because he's just got that gun of an arm. Well, Bo, as disgruntled as we are with Bo's defense, when he goes to his left or his right, he's not that bad. When he charges, he's had problems. The depth that Chapman plays with is going to help that. And just the fundamentals, just seeing Chapman and have Chapman help him is going to be huge for Bo. So the infield defense, I think Slim Daddy Vladdy is way underrated as a first baseman. I think Slim Daddy Vladdy is an awesome first baseman. Yep. See that over the shoulder catch, by the way, that Willie Mays he did in game 1, by the way, like just an incredible, and the crowd couldn't have cared less. The crowd was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was going nuts. But this Blue Jay infield defense is going to be real deal.
That Vladdy catch too you just brought up. That was a play that he really struggled with last year. Was the over his shoulder running towards the outfield catch, right? Which is obviously a difficult catch, but absolutely he looked slick there. And even though, you mentioned it, like Chapman made an error and Biggio made, like it hasn't been super crisp, but it sure looks better than last season. Let's go to the other Craig here. How are you feeling, man? My apologies to say the other Craig.
the good-looking one.
Yeah. Well, we're both doing pretty good in the beard part.
Yeah, hey, good. Yes, Craig.
One day, that's all it took. So, but anyway, the thing that shocked me, I love that, I was ready to do a Vlad dance myself when I saw him catch that one over his shoulder like that. That was the one thing that, like we were all saying, he clearly did work on his defense continually this offseason to be able to get to that kind of thing. Maybe he's found his Justin Smoke-isms at first base. We can see somebody that actually has good first base skills again and just destroys at the plate, which he has been doing as well. So just monstrous stuff. And honestly, to flip back to the Kevin Biggio thing a little bit in the Espinal argument, this team, as far as how it is constructed right now, our two biggest flaws are catching and playing at second base. Right now, there's literally a full-on infight at both of those positions. Jansen's hitting and raking up. Yes, he's made a few errors. Kirk looked pretty good defensively and is hitting just as well in the catching spot. But right now, if you're going with a hot hand into this Yankees series, how are you not rewarding Santiago Espinal with another start tomorrow at second base, regardless of who's on the mound? Defense is plus. He's found a way to destroy the baseball. Let him chuck it out there and see what happens, And one thing I think on the left side of the diamond with Bo and Chapman that is really standing out, they've talked about it in the broadcast on opening day, but you saw it full-on formulated and looking like it was in mid-season form already, and it was based around the charging thing. Chapman's just bolting in front of Bo on those balls that he would normally be able to charge, and he gets that beautiful throwing lane to get over to first base. That it's going to make Bo Bichette look like a Gold Glove playing shortstop all season long, having Chapman be able to get to those balls and cut the ones that he would have had to go around and come back to get into that nice throwing lane. But to that point, he had one of those today, and he did really nice with it.
Well, let's be serious. Have we felt more confident with our third baseman? Like, it's probably been since at least Bringer of Rain in 2015. Like, Chapman is.
But how much were you happy about his defense back then? I love Josh Donaldson, don't get me wrong, but the best defensive shortstop we've even had in the last 2 decades probably was Scott Rowland.
Scott Rowland for
sure.
Yeah. Scott Rowland for sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk. And Jen, I'm going to direct this one at you here because you were actually at opening day, and there was just a moment where the entire crowd just erupts. And so just this year, new rule, right? And they've been doing this in the NFL for years now, but umpires are now announcing the call over the stadium when there is a video review. How cool was that? And do you like this rule change?
I love it. It's fantastic. And it did. It felt very much like a football game. I don't watch a ton of NFL football, but I do love the in-game explanations because, the fans in the stands need to know what's going on. The play is so quick. Give them the explanation. They paid to be there, Can you imagine if we had an explanation in game, game 5 of the 2015, ALCS, right?
Yeah, right.
Like how helpful would that have been, No, I think it's... I said on Twitter that I'm not a fan of everything that Major League Baseball has tried to implement, but I think they absolutely got this right.
Chris, how did you feel about it? It's pretty dang exciting when they, like, even just watching Teoscar fist pump the air like that. You're on board with this, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty simple change and an effective one. It's it's just anytime you can keep the fan engaged for a boring thing like replay, then why not? It's just another reason to cheer.
Joel, anything to add?
No, I agree with everything. I was going to add one little part to the Biggio conversation.
Yes,
and it
absolutely.
was before Chapman came, we had talked about how Craig was there, Scott, you were there, Adam was here, and we all agreed that Santiago Espinal, we were happy if he was our starting third baseman to start this year. We said that before we knew he had this ability to rip gaps now for doubles. Okay, which is really, really impressive to see. He has now maybe moved into that like consistent second base position, right? But also the fact that Cavan you can use him specifically against righties now. I think that makes Cavan Biggio better. If you're using him specifically in a position where he only has to worry about facing righties, I think that makes Cavan Biggio better. So it's the fact that the depth allows them to find maybe less playing time, but more effective playing time.
Agreed.
Well, I try to not get interrupted by my dog here. Everybody does remember that when it was Bo, Vlad, and Biggio in New Hampshire under John Schneider, Biggio was the one that won the MVP award that year.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not ready to sleep on the fact that Biggio is just a left or just a righty guy or anything yet. I just hope he's healthy and gets a chance to show it. And if it doesn't get a chance to be in a Blue Jay uniform, so be it.
Totally.
Well,
and
no, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, and I was going to say, I don't mean to crap on Espinal either, because I really like him a lot. I think he's going to bring a lot to the table this year. But Chris Woodward was asked after the second game yesterday about Espinal, and he said, well, yeah, I mean, we're throwing him fastballs down the middle. Anybody can hit those. And that's, and so that's to I think it's pretty early to make any determinations about what's going to happen at second base and who's going to be healthy throughout the lineup with Biggio's versatility. But Espinal's that looked really great, but he's hammered a couple of fastballs right down the middle, and we don't know how many more of those he's going to get throughout the year as people wake up to the fact that he's a little stronger and hitting the ball with more authority.
Just one more quick thing.
Combo in 30 games.
One more quick thing, right? We've already acknowledged that this is, one of two weak spots on the team. They can always, if necessary, upgrade at the deadline. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I mean, I think, Chris, you bring up a really good point for us all to remember here is that it's too early to knee-jerk reaction on anything. Forget about just the second base position. Really anything at this point we can kind of blow out of proportion. But I did want to quickly touch on Tapia and his play today. And boy, when they said he hits ground balls, they were not lying about that. I know even when he hit into that double play, I found myself thinking, boy, what I would have given for a Grishik strikeout there. But but Joel, how are you?
Squirrels are going to get hit.
Joel, how are you feeling about our fourth outfielder and how he's being used, and if he's the guy?
I liked his fielder's choice, where he replaced Kirk on the kind of a pinch run situation for Kirk, where he could run around the bases. I did enjoy that moment. There's weird things about Tapia. Like, I think Tapia really early on in his career didn't have the only negative launch angle in Major League Baseball. Like, I think he's the only one in baseball and that's not a joke. Like, that sounds like a joke. He has a negative 5-degree launch angle. On average, he hits the ball into the ground. That sounds like a joke. That sounds like the punchline of the joke. It's not. He literally hits the ball into the ground. Early on in his career, he had a much higher launch angle, but he just slowly converted into this literally Baltimore chop style 1905 hitter.
Otis Nixon.
Yeah, like literally the game goes in one way, and he's trying to make it work at the other end of the spectrum. And I don't know if it's kind of an idea where maybe Blue Jays hitting coaches are going to sit down and try to like say, hey, level out your swing, try to drive the ball a little bit more. There's different type of production potential in your bat. You do have really great contact rates. If you could just be more productive in where you put the ball, you could be a productive baseball player, right? But if he's got a negative launch angle, that's what you're going to see is a negative
ground balls.
Yeah, ground balls.
All right, Mark, what are we looking like in YouTube right now? Do we have any comments that we should bring up?
We have a question from Simon. He asks, what's the deal with Saucedo? He seems so good in spring.
That's a great question. Actually, let's go around the horn here and see how we feel. I mean, obviously, he's a 29-year-old guy who just about quit baseball, managed to put it together, hard sinker, gets ground balls, lefty. Kind of that guy who's a cleanup dude, probably, right? Like, they obviously brought him in after Ryu kind of blew up there. Craig, who was with us right from the very beginning. Let's start with you. What is your feeling on Taylor Saucedo?
I've really enjoyed watching him in Buffalo the last couple of years, and the perk of being where I am, I get to see Buffalo games all the time. I'm waiting for him to take that next step to become like the Brett Cecil type or something like that, for when we saw those kind of guys really just own into our bullpen, right? He has all the potential in the world, but we saw today that, why he isn't quite there yet. But then to Craig Ballard's point earlier, he got us a really good key double play the other day too. So
he did.
Like I said, there's something to the tank, but there's something there for it. But we're going to see a lot of ups and downs from Taylor Saucedo. And we saw that last year at the end of the year. Just pops in and does his job, but he needs those opportunities to take that next step. And honestly, I don't think he has much more that he can learn from playing in Buffalo, because he was just kind of really just trucking through everybody there when he was coming out of the bullpen in Buffalo. So I'm very curious to see where his career goes, but I do think he has something to be possibly going and where we were expecting Ryan Borucki to be in that ballpark. Not quite a Brian Talent, but not maybe a Brett Cecil more.
Ooh, nice Talent reference. All right. Well, let's go to a little bit more hairless Craig here and see what you think. Taylor Saucedo, how do you feel about him? Do you think he'll stick in the pen for a while?
Well, first of all, always a good idea to stack Craigs on Craigs. So you've done the order well here, Scott. We talk about the robo-umps. Kevin Biggio's the best J that's going to benefit from that. Well, this needing to pitch to three batters, Saucedo's the one that gets hurt the most by that, because I think he can be very effective against lefties. I'm not nearly as confident with him on righties. And for us here on the walk-off, Anthony Telford, we're all waiting for Ryan Borucki to finally be healthy and pitch to his potential. And at that point, I very much think he leapfrogs Saucedo. Saucedo's also up against it because it's not like there's late inning opportunities for him. If there's a late inning opportunity for a lefty, we want it to be Borucki at some point. Yes, but right now that's Tim Meza. So your question, Scott, will he stick around? It's a very good question. I think he's going to have to be every bit as good as he was in game one. For today, I mean, he probably, as he came to the ballpark today, he probably thought he probably wasn't anticipating being in this game today. So maybe there's some sort of pass for today. I don't know. And he's just on a laundry list of pitchers that were awful today. So are we really going to single him out, for today? Long run, man, he's probably just going to be a meh for me at best, because you guys know me. Hey, we here at the Walkoff, Anthony Telford disciples, right? We're looking forward. We want Ryan Borucki to be that guy for us. So even if Sauce is on, does that make that sounds like it makes sense? But anyway, even if that is the case, I think he still might find himself up against it, because if Borucki can get back to being Borucki, I think his stuff is excellent, and we know how good Meza is.
Chris, expand on that. What are your thoughts on Borucki? Do you think he's going to be a guy who, is going to be relied on as a big lefty in the back end of that pen come maybe July, August, if he gets healthy?
Man, I hope so, because I'm with Craig that I think his potential, the ceiling of what he could bring to the table is really high. You don't see a lot of guys that are left-handed arms that are throwing 97, 98, and he's got some nice breaking stuff. But it's just been a case of he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He hasn't been able to find consistency. He's kind of like a left-handed version of Nate Pearson. It's frustrating to look at all the potential that could be there, but then he hasn't been able to do it. The fact that he's out of options means that when he does get healthy enough to come off the IL, he's going to have to perform well enough to maintain a spot. And so I'm really hoping that when that happens, that he secures his spot and that he can, maybe be that go-to lefty. I like Meza as a late inning guy without really thinking about the left-handed component of it as much. But we'll see what happens. I'm not optimistic, but I'm hoping for it.
No, that's a really good point. Meza is the one lefty in that pen where his splits are far superior to any other lefty that they have an option to go to there. Joel, what are your thoughts on Borucki, the lefties in the pen, and even Tim Meza in general? How you feel about him as our eighth inning guy, kind of high leverage lefty at the back end of the pen?
Well, I like the fact that internally we may have some solutions to this down the line, especially since Anthony Telford really told us that Borucki seemed to have found something beautiful in the offseason last year. That really had all of us incredibly excited. And so to see him come back, he can really, really fill a role there. If he's finding the location that Anthony told us that he was finding, then he's a guy who's not just coming in and facing lefties and trying to have lefty dominant. He could very well have many, many opportunities to face righties as well. So my hopes and dreams are that at least one of Nate Pearson or Borucki is able to come back and really establish himself this year, because it's an internal solution that's just, it's sitting there. It doesn't cost us anything, and one of those guys should be able to come in and be a viable option out of the pen. That will really help us a lot.
Viable internal options is a great point, because that is one position on this roster where if there is a downfall, at least you do have those internal options. You do have people who can come up, because I know Chris mentioned earlier, the real question mark so far going into the remainder of 2022 is that second base position and catcher. So let's even do a quick little flip here, and we'll go to the Harry Craig. I hate that this is how I'm now referring to you, but yeah. We'll go to the Craig with hair, and your thoughts on the catching position. Do you feel Danny Jansen is at a point in his career to take that next step? I know he's put a lot of work into his defensive side of things over the last 4 years in the big leagues, and we're starting to see some offensive life. Is this sustainable? Do you think that he is an actual number one big league catcher, or that he could be going into the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think the defense is already at a point where he could definitely handle that part. And he obviously knows how to handle his staff and everything. The only thing he seems to be having trouble with behind the plate is the stupid little new intercom thing that's supposed to work off of his shin guard. So, but to that point, I've been a huge fan of Danny Jansen from watching him throughout the minor league system. When I was doing minor league writing for jaysjournal.com, I happened to be traveling for my day job, and I happened to see a lot of the games with him in it while I was traveling all around the East Coast. And the bat was always speaking just as loud as his defense was. And all of a sudden to see him get to the major league level and then kind of sizzle out at the plate just didn't seem right. There was something missing to the whole equation here. I get that there's guys that things never translate out to from the minor league system to the majors, but his swing it was so nice and sweet, and it just flows through the zone. He was doing some weird things, it seemed like, right when he got up to the major leagues. He wasn't getting his load right and just wasn't shifting his weight around to show that power that we were starting to see in Buffalo, especially. We saw a glimpse of that at the end of last season. We've just seen a very big continuing glance at that whole thing this first 3 games of the season. If this is the real Danny Jansen, and he's got George Springer batting rail flipped right around the lineup from him, he's going to see a lot of those fastballs to keep doing exactly what we saw this first 2-3 games here with him in it. And it could turn into something that's going to make him look like one of the better catchers in baseball. But to that point, if he turns around and doesn't get those fastballs and whatnot, maybe he looks exactly like the guy that we've been wondering if we were going to have to replace. And he's got a couple of guys that are nipping at his heels. So he's going to have to keep performing at that level to keep that job, and hope that Alejandro Kirk can only stay as a DH or even Moreno in Buffalo.
That the seeing more fastballs point is something I think to keep an eye on, because this back end of this batting lineup is, and I know, Chris, you mentioned when you were talking about Espinal, right? You were like, Woodward brought up that, of course, we're throwing him fastballs down the middle, but that is something that is going to benefit these last three hitters in this lineup, right? That number 7, 8, and 9 are going to see some fastballs. So if guys like Espinal and Jansen can take that step forward and start sitting on those heaters, it's only good news for the Blue Jays. Jen,
this lineup up.
About our catching position, right? Yes. Go ahead. Sorry, Jen.
Yeah, Danny Jansen was actually the first player I ever interviewed. He was with the Bison still, and drove down and interviewed him. And, he came across extremely mature as a player before he even reached the big leagues. You knew something really was there, aside from just, being able to hit the ball or whatever. So I also have a soft spot for him. I've always been really rooting for him. He's had a difficult time since coming to the majors, and some of it is understandable in terms of making that adjustment, learning how to work with the different starting pitchers and all that extra sort of responsibility that goes along with it. I think we're at a point though where, all of those reasons slash excuses are now have to be set aside, right? He absolutely has to show that he can be consistent at the big league level. And he has to do it this year because this team has their sights set, on a particular goal. And every player really has to be contributing towards that. Now, he did, he turned it around at the end of last season. And I remember reading that, he said he had made, changes to his mechanics at the plate. And that was the reason why he had such a good end of the season. If those mechanical changes, have carried over, then maybe we've really got something here. We'll see.
For sure. May I jump in for?
Yeah.
May I jump in for just one moment? I have to run in about 1 minute. So
yeah,
I just want to add one final point, and thank you for welcoming me as a guest. But a bunch of times this evening, I've heard the phrase that Blue Jays catching spot might be a weakness on the team, and I very much disagree with that. For a couple of reasons. I think we have some really high level talent, on both sides of the ball. Danny Jansen could be a great two-way player if he reaches the potential. Kirk is developing with the glove, but he obviously can do a lot with the bat. And Marino's still on the way. And then the other thing is that the level that, or what's the word I'm looking for? The bar isn't really that high in the big leagues for a quality catching. It really isn't. I would put Jansen in top 10 already, kind of thing, or bordering on top 10, and certainly has the potential for better. But that's a great problem to have if one of your weaknesses on the roster is a borderline top 10 spot in the big leagues. So with that, my computer's also going to die. So in case it does mid-sentence, thank you so much for having me. And we'll do this again sometime as long as I'm welcome.
Hey, yeah.
Good seeing you, buddy.
You're very welcome anytime. Honestly, Chris, thank you so much for all the insight and joining us. For everyone listening, where can they find you? Twitter and all of that good stuff.
You betcha. I'm at, you can find my writing at jaysjournal.com, and on Twitter, I'm at baseball4brains. It's a baseball number 4 brains. And so once again, thank you so much, guys. Nice
to meet you, Chris.
Bye.
Some familiar faces.
Cheers, buddy. Awesome.
Take care.
All right. So Chris does make a very good point about the catching position. But one thing I think that, I think when it's stated that catching is maybe a little bit of a Achilles heel on this team, it isn't a shot at Danny Jansen. It isn't a shot at Alejandro Kirk or even Moreno, who's pushing hard to make this team sometime in 2022. It is the fact that it takes so long as a catcher to develop the experience to truly lead a starting pitching staff. I know that we've been lucky enough to have some former Jays pitchers on the show, most notably Pat Hankin. I know Mark Zepchinski brought it when he was on the show, but just that there is a real difference to pitching to a catcher who has 5, 6, 7 years of experience calling games than it does to a guy who's coming up from the minor league system. And it actually, you look at the timing, and it is interesting because they brought Danny Jansen up in 2018, and it might have even felt like they were pushing him a little bit, right? Like they were rushing him perhaps. And now that here we are, 2022, and the timeline this front office have given us as to when they would be winning seems to be right on track. And Danny Jansen now going into his 5th big league season. Things are really lining up, and I'm expecting big things out of Danny Jansen this season. Do we have anyone who maybe would be into, come the trade deadline, depending on what things are looking like, bringing in a experienced catcher? Is that something that might be visited?
I just kind of wanted to touch on a couple of the other, I don't really think so. I like our catching depth.
Yeah.
And the things I wanted to mention that I love about Danny is the fact that he was working with the pitchers in the off season, doing bullpen sessions with them individually, working with the pitchers individually, which is just, I love that. I feel like it's been brought up on this show before, but knowing who you are as a hitter it's one thing to come up to the major leagues and do all the things that you have to do to be a good hitter, but to know who you are individually as a hitter. And we talked about on the show how Marcus Semien has a pull approach. He came up last year and I'm a pull hitter. And we talk about Danny Jansen becoming that. And we look at Blue Jays down the line who have found that moment of like, this is what kind of hitter I am. Teoscar Hernandez had that moment. Jose Bautista had that moment, that light bulb turning on and saying, this is what kind of hitter I am. You may want me to slap the ball the other way, but if I'm looking for a ball and I can find it over the middle of the plate and I can groove it, I can hit it 9 miles, So I think Danny, has transitioned from that guy who I talk about how he would shave his mustache in between the bats to being a guy who knows who he is at the plate and being incredibly confident up there. We saw it for September last year, and oh my God, are we seeing it this year? We're seeing it every single at bat. And Kirk, Kirk didn't put up an 800 batting average, but he was putting up at bats where he was hitting he hit a ball that I thought was a home run. His sacrifice fly was a good at bat. Like he's making really, really good contact. And I kind of was worried that, our DH is going to be a catcher this year. I don't know if I'm so worried about that anymore. So I'm happy about our depth of catching.
With what I used to see Alejandro Kirk do in Bluefield in West Virginia, hitting balls into the literal wilderness, I'm not worried about that man ever hitting the damn ball in my life.
No.
I mean, that was the sac fly in game 1 that made it from 7-2 to 7-3. I thought that was an Alejandro Kirk home run as well. That was a sac fly in the opening game. I thought he got it.
And I think he hit another one later in the games, a deep fly ball as well. He's like, and I think that you open up the dome and one of those is out. Like I'm a big Kirk fan. I'm a big Captain Kirk fan.
Yeah, he's made good contact this year for sure. Go ahead, Craig.
I had the pleasure of meeting him a bunch of years ago when he was still playing in West Virginia with Bluefield, and the guy is just a student of hitting. Period. The catching is definitely a secondary thing. That's just, he's got to have a place to play on the diamond. He loves catching, but the fact that he is just fascinated with hitting, and he's going to look like one of those guys. I think that at the end of his career, that he's going to end up being a DH. I really do think that, and he's just going to rake. I really think he's going to have a little collective amount of hits by the time it's said and done, and it's going to be good for the Blue Jays if he's wearing that in the DH spot. Regardless, he knows how to hit the ball when he needs to, and he's not selfish. He'll actually go the other way, as we saw the other day, and pick up an RBI when he needs to. So it'll be very interesting to see.
And there's something to be said for those hitters that are sponges that just want to constantly keep learning how to hit and how to adjust and all that stuff. Mark, are we in the YouTube comments here? Do we have anything to?
Well, I want to know. I have a question for everybody, just personally. If Kirk, let's say Kirk's going to hit, Jansen's hitting well so far. These guys are riding into June, both doing really well. What if Moreno's hitting 360, 350? What if he's raking in AAA? What do you do?
It's a fun problem to have.
What do you do?
First of all, Mark, I want to show you 2 new Blue Jays. My God, you're killing it. Well done. I just noticed that, but I just noticed it. That's awesome. But Mark, that's like Alek Manoah. The plans were not to have Alek Manoah on the big league level last season, but he smashed it and he kicked butt in spring training. And his first few starts in AAA, he made it clear, I'm major league ready right now. I'm not just knocking on the door. I kicked that door in. And we
Who are you moving out?
Interesting point.
I was going to say,
go to Jen on that then. Imagine a scenario where is literally lighting AAA on fire. It's late June, early July, and you just front office is like, we need a spot. How do you see this unfolding? Do you think that they carry 3 catchers like they are right now? Like,
I was going to say they're doing it, right? They've done it before, so yeah. I have absolutely no idea. As Craig Borden said, it is a fun problem to have, right? You know,
give me that problem.
Do you trade one of them? I mean, I don't know, right? There are a number of different scenarios there as to how it could play out. So I'd love to see it happen because I would actually like to find out the answer to that question.
Yeah, I think at that point you're going to be trading somebody because you just got to have everybody's bats in the lineup and you'd be wasting a spot, right? If they're all hitting that well, you have to have you can only get 2 of them in the lineup at DH or catcher.
Yeah,
you can't bring anybody else off this lineup.
Plays Collins. If you're bringing Moreno up, it's because he's playing every single day for you. So it's quite a stretch. It's quite a stretch.
Investment.
Think of what could be fetched. And man, we were thinking Alejandro Kirk was the centerpiece of a Jose Ramirez trade.
Yeah.
So think what could be fetched for either one of these guys.
Yeah.
Especially if they do what we're talking about here and they finally all take off.
Gold, do you have anything to add here, bud?
I think the points were all just actually mentioned because you have 3 pieces that could literally fetch something from any different team. A team needs this from a catcher. A team needs this from a catcher. A team needs this from a catcher. Their potentials are in different ways. Danny's got more of a defensive game now, could be a power bat. Kirk has this incredible contact rate. Moreno might be a generational hitter that you could potentially move off of catcher and maybe see him at third base, more of a DH. Like I think about Yordan Alvarez in Houston. They brought him up as a DH and have found a way to get him into the field, right? If you have a bat that is so exceptional, you find a way to get it into the lineup, right? You don't worry about, where are we going to play him? Exactly, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
I'm good.
Okay, we're gonna take a left turn here. And we're going to, unless anyone else has anything to mention Blue Jays wise, and feel free to speak up now because we're going to talk Atlanta for a second here. If everyone,
just out of curiosity, what would you all be satisfied with in terms of coming out of New York?
I want 2 at least.
I need 2. I have to have 2.
Is it a 4-game series?
The 4-game
series.
See, this is one of those careful what you wish for. But hey, we want at least 2. The Jays are going to win the first 2, and then we're going to be disgruntled. So this is one of these be careful what you wish for, right? Real panic.
I was the complete jerk on our podcast earlier this week that I said we were going to lose 1 to the damn Rangers, and I was saying we were going to sweep the Yankees. So I'm hoping for a sweep. I'm going home.
Okay, well, I like that. Yes, I'll take 1 loss to the Rangers and 4 wins to the Yankees every single time.
I don't think our pitching's ready yet, and I'm hoping that we get enough offense that we just take a dump in their backyard. But what do I know?
Well, guys, the real that series is tomorrow night, right? Tomorrow night is our first Manoah day of the year.
Yep.
We can't be happy with anything we've seen from the starting pitchers. I think a lot of the Blue Jay fan base has their hand poised over the panic button. If it's a stinker from Manoah tomorrow as well, a 4th straight stinker, and it's Manoah, I think a lot of the fan base pushes that panic button tomorrow.
Freaking me out, man. Yeah. Don't want it. 4 games.
There's actually a question in chat about that, asking everybody what they think Manoah will how he'll do tomorrow.
He's handled the Yankee Stadium well in the past.
Thank you, Mark. That's great.
Ever.
Yeah. I'm going to think it's a status quo with him in that ballpark.
Let's start with exactly like you, Craig, you're taking the lead here anyway. So how do you feel about Manoah starting off the series with the Yankees? What can we expect from him? Do you think he's going to be as strong as he was last year?
That's Craig with the hair, wasn't it?
As I say,
Right with
which
the hair,
was specific.
Yes. Sorry.
I have no qualms about what Manoah can do as my dog's digging the crap out of my couch. He's always pitched well in that ballpark. He made his major league debut, correct me if I'm wrong, in New York, and had no issues with it. Tuned out all that noise, all the boos, all the "you don't belong here's," whatever the heck, all that crap that Bronx fans were saying. I just don't see how he's at least not going to give us a few strong innings tomorrow. And I'm hoping that he's going to be our best start so far to this young season.
Wouldn't take much.
Well, the chance we got now. First of all, can't we all read the play? I think Craig with the hair hid some cookies in the couch there. I think we all see what's happening, and the dog is onto the scent. Anyway, but the thing about Manoah,
he's looking for Blue Jays wins. It's okay.
Outstanding pitches. That's our chance. So even tomorrow, if something's not working because it's too early, he'll have a lot of things he can go to. So I'm a big believer. I've been on record right here on the walk-off long toss more than once. MLB is not ready for Alek Manoah. He's becoming a household name. This time next year, he's a first-round draft pick in every single fantasy league there is. Alek Manoah is going to be in the top 10 for Cy Young voting. He is absolutely special.
I plan on him being my keeper. That's the goal. Is he does so well that in my keeper league, I go, yes, Alek Manoah. Jen, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say really simply that, after three, not great outings from the starting pitching walking into Yankee Stadium, Alek Manoah is exactly who I want on that mound because he brings the swagger with him, right? He does not he's not afraid of anything. He's just, he's a different kind of dude out there, right? And the way he behaves in between innings and everything like that. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I think I'm more excited for that start than for any of the opening series.
Same.
Agreed. I think so. We'll go around the horn here. Predictions. Yankee series. How many games they going to win, Joel?
Gosh.
Ooh, I'd love a Manoah win. I'd love Kikuchi takes the second game, and I would love 5 innings where he keeps us in it, and then I would love 2 rebound starts from our top 2 guys, and in there somewhere, if we can squeak out 3 wins and try to say that this is a statement from beginning to end. That this movie is going to start big and it's going to end big and we're going to do things big all season. I'd like to say that we can go get 3 wins. It's the team can do it. The team can do it. And everything on Manoah, Manoah deserves as much of that Vladdy love and that Bo love. He's the pitcher version of that. Mm-hmm. He's the young. He's got the attitude. He's got the personality. He's got the bulldogness. He pitches inside and he doesn't care when he hits you. He's not affected when he hits you. He's going to throw it right back in there with the utmost confidence. And we're going to see moments from this guy that are just big personality moments where the city is going to be able to wrap their arms around this guy and bring them to their chest. So, and if you remember his debut with his mom watching, with him throwing fastballs by Aaron Judge, that was one of the highlights of last year. So I'm just looking forward to this. New York.
He's what everybody thought Nate Pearson would be.
Yeah, it's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
2-3 years ago,
absolutely.
Nate Pearson was supposed to be Alek Manoah.
It's nice to be able to fly right under the radar and steal that spotlight, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Yankees, Jays prediction. Craig with the hair. What do you think? How many wins?
Well, I already gave you my prediction for my podcast. I
Sweet.
can't back
there
out.
you go. You can't back out now.
So.
Perfect.
I love that Manoah's going to be able to go in and do what he's going to do, I think. And then honestly, I'm looking for in the first start that Kikuchi had last year against the Yankees, he only gave up 1 home run to Giancarlo Stanton. And I assume that was the more of the real Kikuchi than the whatever the heck he got too tired or hurt for the second half of last season. So I'm hoping that he's going to be able to get some enough offense. I think the biggest status quo for the Blue Jays for this series, if they can hold the Yankees to 3-4 runs each game, they're going to be able to out-hit them. I really think that's going to happen. And after watching what the Red Sox did to Garrett Cole the other day, I'm sorry to say he doesn't scare me anymore. And I think Josh Donaldson's comment rings a little too true these days. So I think there's a chance for that sweep.
Okay, so Joel's got 3 wins for the Jays. Craig's taking a sweep of the Yankees. Bald Craig, what are you taking, bud?
I am so upset because I don't want to initiate Craig on Craig crime. There is 0 chance of a sweep. Kikuchi is terrible. There was 0 chance of a sweep. That Kikuchi game is going to be really ugly. So I think 2 out of 3 of the other games is the most we can hope for. I think 2 out of 4 is the most we can hope for. And big picture, 2 out of 4 as the road team is actually very good.
Jen, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm predicting 2 out of 4. I'd like to see 3 for 2 reasons. One, it would mean a bounce back from at least one of the starting pitchers that did not do well. And I think that would be really important to see. And then number 2, I'd really just like to send that early message.
Couldn't agree more. I'm going to go with, I will predict 2 of 4, but I'm with everyone. Obviously, the dream is 3 or more, but yeah. Okay, so we'll move on then past the Jays here. Again, hold your tongues if we're good. Anything to add, Jays-wise? All right. So I don't know if everyone here has seen it.
Craig, I thought that was a great point Jen made, right? I thought that was a great point Jen finished it off with there. If this is a good series, then some of these starters that we're down on right now have righted their ship at Yankee Stadium. That got me excited. I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I don't know if you all have seen it, but the Atlanta Braves World Series ring is like nothing I've ever seen before. They're very, very cool. So for everyone listening who hasn't seen it, basically, so there's 22 emerald cut diamonds on the left and right sides of the ring, amounting to 44 in total to honor Hank Aaron, who just passed away last year. And each of the 4 corners of the ring, there's princess cut rubies signifying the Braves 4 World Series. And then the top on the ring actually opens up, and there's the truest field on the inside. Just very, very cool. So how bad do all of us want to see a retractable roof open up on our World Series ring, right?
I want to know how much they paid Michael Bay in all the Transformers movies to get that cool of a ring. Just saying. Flips open.
Wasn't it an interesting ring? Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Craig had to take off there, but that's all right. Joel, did you see the ring? What were your thoughts?
I did. I thought it's a one-upsmanship thing now, right? Oh, I'm kind of got some lag going on here. It's a one-upsmanship thing. You know, you constantly see the NBA come in or the NFL come in. You got to make your ring better than that last ring. So, you know, eventually it's going to be like an entire gauntlet. It's going to be an Iron Man suit. It's going to be something ridiculous because they just keep going bigger and bigger.
Nintendo Power Glove on this shit, man.
This is going to be this big bejeweled gauntlet that they.
I'm just thinking about Thanos right now.
That's where it's gonna go. You can't get. It's not gonna eventually like. Oh, we went subtle and we went down to 1 diamond. Yeah. That's not gonna happen. So
they start calling it a World Series glove. Yeah.
Exactly.
You ever gonna watch that show How I Met Your Mother? Barney had the suit where it was all diamonds.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like that. It's just tuxedo, all dressed up, diamond pinstriping.
But it's a really thoughtful ring, right? Like it opens up and it actually has real lights, like the stadium lights inside.
Yeah, there's LED lights.
There's, because of the field, there's I think 11 rubies representing like where the home runs landed during the World Series. Like, and it was like what 18.71 karat gold to represent their history of 1870. Like the thought that went into this is phenomenal.
It is. It's so cool. Definitely blows the.
I think the tip of the hat of Hank Aaron was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
You know, that was really cool that they were able to integrate that in there too.
Are they gonna have to redesign the trophy? You know, the rings. The rings. You're like, I don't want the trophy. Just give me the ring now. Yeah, it's more expensive.
No, you're gonna get a ring the size of the trophy, and if it's on your head.
Okay, so we are kind of at the point of long toss here where we're slowly starting to wrap up. But one last thing I did want to touch on here before we kind of go around the horn and get everyone's socials and where everyone can find you and all that good stuff. And while we're talking about the Braves, this was kind of big in the baseball news of things this week. So there was a interview with Ronald Acuna Jr. where he was talking about Freddie Freeman. Now, at first, when it came out, so it had been translated from Spanish to English, and everyone was talking about how he had said that he wasn't sad to see Freddie Freeman go, that he was never treated with all that much respect by him. And it kind of went on like that for a while. The whole transcript or whatever is pretty much everywhere all over social media. And when that first came out, he was actually on Twitter and came out and said, "This is not what I said." And then later, everyone actually sat down and actually had it translated, and it was pretty close to how it came out. So a few things from this. Number one, I do want to talk about just the timing of it and how odd it is for him to even bother bringing this up when he very easily could have just not. I want to know how everyone feels about, you don't need to take sides, but just, does that change your view of Freddie Freeman? And does it change your view of Ronald Acuna? Jen, I'd love to start with you if you have some thoughts on this.
I mean, I wasn't in that clubhouse, right? So I have no idea what went on, what was said, the demeanor, the tone. I have absolutely no idea. So
you start the answer to questions way better than Ronald Acuna does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily why you would go there now. Perhaps, to him it was egregious in some respect, and he feels that he needs to be heard. We have absolutely no idea. The interesting part for me is it gets back into the debate about the unwritten rules of baseball, right? And what some people's view perhaps of the right way to play the game, and how that is not necessarily how everybody plays the game, and should it be? And couldn't we use a little bit more fun in baseball and a little bit more pizzazz? And I think that's maybe the bigger topic than whether or not the two of them got along.
Us not being in that clubhouse is such a great point, because it's really tough to take what happened and make any sort of hard opinions on it. I know one thing that kind of stood out to me, though, was that there are bratty 22-year-olds out there. It's not always about whether one guy's having fun or not. And I know that Freddie Freeman does have this really sterling reputation of being a good clubhouse guy. Craig, I'm wondering on your thoughts on this. Like, how do you feel this unfolded, and why would he bring this up, in your opinion, after Freeman's already gone and when he could just let it roll?
Well, I'm for being as many dugouts as I was through playing baseball through college and whatnot. I agree with Jen in the fact that this falls into the unwritten rules of baseball. And these are things that, sorry, if you were butthurt about it, deal with it. It happened in the past, bring it up with your team, keep it in the clubhouse. It was a little odd to see it out in the, universe like we are seeing here. I caught the flip side of that whole thing the day after on MLB Network. A bunch of the guys were interviewing actually Freddie Freeman about finally, landing in LA basically. And, he's going to get to play his first game in front of his family, all that kind of good stuff and everything like that. And they brought this up in the midst of the conversation, just like, yep, did you remember this happened? We're going to deal with this on live air. Threw it right in there on him. And, he brought it up to the point that he was actually, if he was upset about these things with Acuna to Freeman anyway, so Freeman in that locker room was expected to be the guy that was upholding the clubhouse rules and how to play Atlanta Braves baseball, all these wonderful things that are, typical of basically the head clubhouse guy. And if he is the head clubhouse guy, he's got to be able to, okay, hey, these are the things that I was getting yelled at when I was in here. That chain of events just continues to go. And knowing what we all probably even love about Ronald Acuna, being a little bit more boisterous, being out there, being the fun, let the kids play kind of idea. Did that rub certain people in that dugout the wrong way? And maybe Freddie Freeman just ended up having to be the enforcer. I could see that being a problem. I really don't think it's a personal problem between the two of them. I literally think it boils down to some of these stupid events that happened in their tenure of being Atlanta Braves together. And to that point right now, I'm just going to say this too. I know Acuna wasn't in the locker room the whole season last year. Is this really his locker room to even be making these comments right now in Atlanta? I can make the debate. I don't know. But to that point, he's going to take over that locker room.
Yeah.
I will tell you that wholeheartedly, but being
That's a
hurt
great
last
point.
year and still hurt.
That's a great point.
It seemed very odd for him to be making that comment.
Is this his locker room? Joel, thoughts on that?
Is it Acuna's locker room after he wasn't present for the World Series? That's a really good question. I think you have this transitional thing with Braves. You went from Chipper Jones. Chipper Jones kind of handed it down to Freeman. And you look at this generational thing, like the unwritten rules of baseball, what it is to be a baseball player. And when your franchise face is transitioning into let the boys play more style generation of player. You've got that kind of jump in generation, in concept of what the game is, right? And the concepts of this game change, launch angle and how everything is changing all the time, right? So the culture in the clubhouse is going to change along with it. And I think you probably have a little bit of a disconnect there because you've got two different cultures. You've got like a Latin speaking ball player and an American ball player who speaks English, right? So you've got that natural disconnect on being able to speak a language, especially when Acuna probably first comes up, right? And what comes into my mind is like, thank God the similar situation is happening in Toronto, but we seem to be incredibly motivating to those young players, to the Guerreros, to the Bichettes, bringing in veteran presences to influence them on how to do things and how to train and how to prepare and how to be there at 5:30 in the morning and be the first one there and be the last one out. I think like we have balanced the perfect amount of letting them have fun, but also getting them into the grind of what it takes to be a really amazing ball player. So I feel bad that that's happening over in Atlanta. Hell, they won a World Series with, I guess, some, Acuna wasn't there, but I hope that we're able, and I think that we are able to, everybody, like, look at how Matt Chapman was brought into the like Latin group of ball players, right? It seems like it's a family and it seems like everybody's got everybody's back. So when I hear about those issues elsewhere, I'm like, I don't see them here. I don't see them.
I think it's important. I think it's important to kind of acknowledge too that this was probably blown out of proportion by the media after it happened. I don't think that there's actually as big a grudge and as big of a bone to pick with Acuna and Freddie as maybe it was made out to be. And I think you made a really good point there, Joel, about just the generational disconnect. I mean, the truth is Freddie's 32 and Acuna's 22. That's a big gap. There's a lot of life growth that goes on in those 10 years. And then on top of it, there's the language barrier. So they come from different worlds. And I love your point there, Joel, to how the Blue Jays have just kind of managed to, not that there isn't still obviously generational and languages gaps on this team, but for whatever reason, it does feel not as wide. Mark, do you have any comments in YouTube here or anything to add yourself before we wrap up?
There's nothing too much on. There's a couple comments on here about Acuna not being part of the World Series team, which Joel already touched on. So there's that. My personal opinion is, I love Freeman. I think he's kind of like Joel said, he's kind of that stand-up guy, the team leader kind of guy. Acuna's, he's the young, fun, let him play kind of guy. Yeah. I think in the end, like you said, it's no big deal, but probably the biggest takeaway for me is that the biggest issue is just Acuna just didn't need to say that. He could have just said, even if he was bullshitting, he could have just said, oh yeah, we're really going to miss Freeman. He was a great guy. And everybody would love Acuna today. But now we're sitting here talking about, Acuna making some comments about not missing Freeman. and it's kind of gotten blown up a little bit. But maybe that's the only takeaway I have. I don't really think it's a big deal. I think just Acuna probably just should have said something different.
So let's touch on real quick here. Let's touch on real quick here what they're saying in the chat. And Joel, we'll start with you here. If you're Ronald Acuna Jr., 2021, you're injured the last, 5 months of the season. You weren't really feeling like, I don't know how he felt. Maybe he did feel like he was still a big member of that team. Does that World Series ring mean as much to you if you miss the entire season through injury?
Oh, I would feel like they gifted me a big bunch of diamonds. I don't feel like I've contributed to that, and I don't think that he wants to feel like he contributed to that, even though he was out there with everybody celebrating when that World Series was won. Like, it was the fact that Anthopoulos pulled in this magical 4 outfielders to fill in the gap of this one superstar, and they pull off some magic to get there. That was the full team that got that win. That wasn't one individual. The thing that that comes to my mind with the Tatis Jr., the Acuna types, is that they want to be the face. They want to be the guy in the locker room, like especially with Machado and Tatis, right? You had that Machado's like a little bit older, and he's like, "This is the way things are, Tatis." And they had that kind of breakdown between them. The thing that I love is that we have 2 of those players, Bo Bichette and Vladdy Guerrero, who are the next generation, who have the flair, who have the flash, but their parents were ball players, and that legacy, like Tatis's dad was a ball player too, but it seems like that mentality has transitioned into Bo, has transitioned into Vladdy, where they just think about, how do I get better for tomorrow? How do I think of so it's got that, how do I be great for the ball club? How do I be that guy in the locker room that people look up to? And how do I be the flair? How do I be both? Because it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can be amazing in that clubhouse and you can be flashy as hell at the same time. So I think that's what I'm happy to see here.
Thank you so much to all of you for joining. Did anybody have anything else to add on this, or just in general, before we go around the horn here and say our goodbyes?
I got to make a stupid joke.
Yes, please. Finally, somebody.
So do you think this whole thing with the Braves is the difference between the ship is sinking or the Barrio jacket? Just
inside jokes, gang.
It felt J-Hole and Brandish.
All right. Honestly, again, thank you so much to all of you. Jen, we'll start with you. Where can everyone find you? And again, we had so many comments from the last time you were on the show, Jen, and so many people were like, you have to have her back. So thank you so much for returning. We do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone who wanted me back. And I'd be happy to come back again.
Yes.
You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram at baseball_Jen. And that is Jen with 2 N's.
All right. Let's, Mark, number 1, welcome back, buddy. I know you're not going to be with us for the next, 3 weeks? You're headed off to Europe.
Yeah. England. Sarah's, my girlfriend's from England, so we're going back to see our family for first time in 4 years or whatever, and should be good.
So
Take them back here and go see a ball game. Absolutely, we'll be celebrating. No worries.
Okay, Craig, fill us in on Jay's Watching podcast and where everyone can find you.
So first off, Jay Bird Watching is the podcast that we're doing every Thursday evening about 7:00. We go live, and we're doing something similar to you guys, where we are just we mark ourselves as the Barroom Blue Jays chat, and we're trying to live up to that as much as we humanly possibly can. We don't have a lot of guests from places unless we have random interviews where we throw in a weekly episode here or whatever, but our main core is our 4 group of guys, and a lot of the people like Chris Henderson's been on the show, a lot of writers, and we want to have that voice of the fans in our show. That's kind of where we go. And I did one right before this show this evening during the game, 2:00 every Sunday. I'm going to try shooting for a Twitter Spaces
awesome.
bit so that everybody can join in.
We'll join you.
We actually, funny enough, for Mark, we had about 17 people from the UK chit-chatting with us from the people over there, and it was great to chit-chat and get that perspective with everybody across the pond, and it was a fun time. But to that point, we're trying to build up that thing with we got into this because we love talking to Blue Jays fans at our podcast, and we wanted to keep that up as much as we humanly possibly can. To that point, apparently we're doing something right, because we actually have also joined up with Fansided, and we are actually the official Blue Jays podcast of jaysjournal.com. Once again, getting to work with Chris Henderson. Make sure you check out the guys' work over there at fanside.com, and Chris Henderson and all the gang are doing really good stuff. I had the pleasure of writing with them, in the glory days of Josh Donaldson and Jose Bautista in 2015, 2016. Then I found it a lot easier to chit chat and talk than it was to actually sit and type. So,
well, no, Craig, that's great, man. We really appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully we can twist your arm and get you back. Maybe some of the other boys from the cast as well.
Yeah, if you guys ever need me, we have a great cast of group. One of us I would think would be able to make it anytime you need to. It is not just me, it is 4 of us. And what we do, we actually rotate who hosts every week too. So you get a little bit of a different voice each week, almost like we have a horrible Saturday Night Live level of who's hosting this week. And I tend to be a little bit more old school with baseball thought. Brendan Panikar is great with the whole stats thing. We just got Chris Key from another podcast that he's not had time to join in with his buddy as much, so he was happy to jump in with us. Adam Corsair of what used to be south of the 6.com has also joined in with us too, and he's hoping it's very quickly Biggio season at frickin' second base too. That's his big mantra for this so far. At Birdwatching GC is the Twitter handle on all of our social media, so you can find us.
Thanks again, Craig. Really appreciate it. We will give a quick shout out to Craig.
Our pleasure being here.
Ballard. Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome anytime. We'll give a quick shout out to Craig Ballard, a regular here on the show who wasn't supposed to show up and then showed up. So we love having that. And then our resident experienced vet, Hey Kami. Joel, where can everyone find you, brother?
Right here, Hey Kami at Hey_Kami on TikTok. Check out Craig as well. Craig's battery died. He said to me, he was just texting me. So check him out at Craig_Ballard at _Jays Talk. And it's Talk, TOK, not TALK. You can check me out here. And Scott, I'm super excited to be going to your comedy show here coming up in a few days. So
we're meeting in person for the first time.
We get to meet in person. It's going to be amazing. Nice. Adam will be there too. So that's going to be a great moment.
Well, I'll end on that then. I am recording my debut comedy album on Thursday in Edmonton at the Grindstone Theater. So if there's any Edmontonians who are into baseball and into funny, please, I would love it if you'd come out. Tip of the hat to Adam Mack for getting us going here. We do run Long Toss every single Sunday from 6 till 8. Thank you to everyone on YouTube who has joined us live and to everyone who follows the Walkoff on a regular basis. Take care, everybody.